What did your parents or family do that you later realized was insane? When my mother left my dad, she pitched a tent in my walk-in closet. I was 7 or 8, and she lived in my closet for months before she got her own place. I still remember her reading her Joyce Meyer books by lamplight. I don't have very many memories of my childhood, or really anything in the last 25 years. But I do remember, when we would go in timeout, we had to bend our knees and fold our arms behind our backs while staring at the wall. We had to stand motionless and silent for 30 minutes. If we moved or swayed, we got another 30 minutes. This would go on for hours sometimes. My brothers and I would pull muscles and pass out sometimes. Also, while we were in the shower, our parents would search our rooms. They did this every day, and if they found anything they didn't, like, they'd make us jump out of the shower, still dripping wet and naked, and come clean up, or explain whatever they found. And we were always grounded, but they would never tell us why. So, since we were already grounded, they would just take away our birthdays, or do timeout for punishment. I have only celebrated my birthday twice in my life, and both times my mom shut it down within 10 minutes. They kept everything. Everything. The moment I walked into my friend's house and realized you're not supposed to have stuff lining the walls was ridiculous. My mom once blew out the pilot lights on our gas stove, cranked up the gas, and told 7-year-old me and my 14-year-old sister to go to sleep. I went to bed, not knowing any better. Luckily, my sister dragged me out of the house, and we sat in the car. Mom finally changed her mind, sobered up a bit, aired out the house, relit the pilots, and took us back inside. That was fun. My mom was always very invested in our romantic lives, partly because that was an area where we didn't stack up well as compared to our cousins. The most insane manifestation of this was when I agreed to go out on a date with a guy, only to find out before the date that he was a sexual predator who'd been fired/arrested after he preyed on 4 separate freshmen at the school where he taught. Mom flipped out trying to convince me not to cancel the date. He might have grown out of it. You don't know if you don't give him a chance. Thankfully, my dad was on my side and I cancelled the date. But mom sulked the entire rest of the night and demanded I log her into my Facebook account so she could scroll through my friends list so that she could see which of my male friends were straight and single so that she could push me towards them instead. Let homeless punk rockers live with us. Several. And some of them slept in our beds with us, with her permission. Both of my sisters were teen moms. My grandpa would pick up my mom and aunt from elementary school and race the train every time. My mom scared shitless and my aunt cheering him on to go faster. No restrictions on food or drinks. From the time I was 4 or 5 I was drinking around 5 cans of Dr. Pepper a day. My parents never told me I needed to drink water and real juice was never in the house. Juice when I was little was Hawaiian Punch or the 5% juice Minute Maid fruit punch. Lunches during the summer was a continuous cycle of pizza rolls, SpaghettiOs and McDonald's. Breakfast was either chocolate Pop-Tarts or Fruity Pebbles cereal. I don't eat junk food now, and then is too much, but I don't think I had a single day in my childhood where I wasn't given sweets, fatty snacks and caffeine. The funny thing is, as a kid I used to think it was my friends' parents who were the odd, mean ones for only letting their kids have things like sodas on rare occasions. Looking back, I speculate that along with just being lazy parenting, it was also probably my parents' way of trying to make me happy and make up for the lack of time spent with me by buying me whatever junk food I wanted. My brother, while raising his boys, would buy like 10 gallons of milk at a time when it was on sale and then put it in the deep freezer. It never tasted like milk after it thawed. He claimed to not have noticed a difference. Oh, there's a difference, alright. We lived on a farm in the middle of nowhere, at least 35 minutes to the nearest grocery store. I'm not sure how it started, because I was a kid, but anytime our puppy dog howled, we would all howl. To the point that it was a deafening sound and would kind of make your ears rattle. His name was Duke. I would occasionally howl first, because then he would follow, and then so would my mother, father, and 2 older brothers. I thought it was awesome, and it felt invigorating to do. I now realize this is odd. It might be odd, but that does sound awesome. My parents visited underground Atlanta back in the early 90s. Not the safest place. Anyways, my brother was a baby and crawled under a bench they were sitting on. He pulled out an umbrella bag with a very sinister knife inside. My parents don't report the knife or anything, but instead keep it, and it becomes a staple knife in our kitchen. So yeah, pretty sure my parents used a murder weapon to cut the crust off our PB&Js. My dad fell victim to many money scams in the early 2000s. He would always say he's sitting on a gold mine, and I thought we were gonna be rich. Yeah, I don't think he's learned his lesson. I still catch him replying to bullshit emails. My godbrother's parents used to lock us in his room for hours to days at a time. His little brothers learned to pee in the trash can instead of on the floor when we couldn't get them out. We eventually learned how to unlock and relock the hatch from inside the room so that the four of us could get out for pee breaks and for snacks when we were feeling really ballsy. I didn't realize how abnormal this was until I was watching a news story in the work break room with a bunch of co-workers about a neglected child being removed from an unfit home. My initial response was that's nothing. As I launched into what I just wrote above, I looked around waiting for everyone else's stories, but instead they all just stared at me. I have a brother with disabilities. He's relatively low functioning and requires regular attention, both inside the home and out. I love him to death, but it made for a pretty untraditional childhood. I didn't realize until my late teenage years that other families were happy and relaxed, which isn't to say that they didn't have their problems, just that they weren't constantly preoccupied by one family member who requires more care and attention than others at all times. To be clear, my brother is a wonderful person. I cherish every moment that I get to spend with him now. But, at the same time, I spent a disproportionate amount of my childhood in waiting rooms while he went to various therapies. And I spent very little time with my parents growing up because all of their attention was focused on my brother. I was an afterthought because I was lucky enough to be an afterthought and still function. My alcoholic bipolar father would drop me and my two siblings off at the grocery store with his credit card and told us to go grocery shopping. We were young kids when this started. He'd either go hit up a bar or wait in the parking lot before coming back to get us. Sometimes it would be a long wait. Looking back, I still don't know how we were able to run his credit card and no one ever batted an eye. We had to cook too, so it wasn't exactly healthy stuff. A lot of times the food would all be gone a week or so before he'd take us back to the store. We had to get really creative. We'd joke that there was nothing left but the goo in the back of the refrigerator. Honestly surprised we didn't develop diabetes, although I'm hypoglycemic, or obesity or anything serious. We quickly learned not to buy a bunch of candy or sweets, something that kind of impressed me looking back. I learned to keep an emergency stash of food hidden in my room. One of many insane things, but first that came to mind. Kinda relevant, but I'm still gonna post this. When I was in 6th grade, I think, my mom decided we needed to understand what it was like for people in third world countries. We ate oatmeal for breakfast, beans and rice for lunch, could have one fruit for a snack, and beans and rice plus some romaine lettuce for dinner. All of this for a month, and we were only allowed 3 cheat meals. In high school, looking back, I just thought she was batshit nuts. But once I started having bills and such of my own, it occurred to me my parents were just that broke. They just didn't want us to think of it that way. Damn, do I love those two people. On the day my dad decided to buy our family's first PC, he loaded me and my younger sisters into the back of our little 2-door Honda and drove the 20 minutes to the store. After purchasing the computer, my dad realized there wasn't enough room in our tiny car for 3 children, car seats, and the giant-ass 1997 computer. So he left us at the store, apparently thinking that if he bought us all candy bars, that'd be enough to keep a 5, 3, and 2-year-old occupied and out of trouble. He took the new computer home and then turned around to come back and get us, having left us alone for easily 40 minutes. My dad once took 3 of us kids out for a ride in the Pine Barrens. He drove us 20 minutes into the woods on a sandy trail in a minivan. He had just gotten into a fight with my stepmother and needed a drive to burn off all the alcohol in his system. He didn't say much during the ride. We got stuck, obviously because we were in a 2-wheel drive caravan, but luckily some 4-wheel drive truck dude came through and winched us out. When that guy showed up, dad wasn't quiet anymore, and we left the woods when we were unstuck and went home. I'm not sure what his intentions were that day, but the look on my stepmother's face when we returned made me rethink whether it was a fun ride in the woods or a screw this life moment worthy of the nightly news narrowly averted. Oof. That's enough for today. Take care and see you all tomorrow.